Jake Morrison was having what he considered a pretty standard Tuesday when Administrator Quilnix appeared in the doorway of the maintenance bay, holding a datapad like it personally offended him. Quilnix was a Thrandorian, which meant he looked like someone had crossed a praying mantis with a tax auditor and given the result an anxiety disorder. Human Jake Morrison, Quilnix announced, his mandibles clicking with bureaucratic precision. You have been selected for the honor of representing your species in the Galactic Survival Challenge. Jake looked up from the air filtration unit he was fixing, wrench in hand. Cool. Cool. Is that like a potluck situation, or? Quilnix's compound eyes somehow managed to convey disappointment despite having no eyelids. It is a trial of survival against the most hostile environment known to the Galactic Council. Planet Verdaxis 9. 30 competitors enter. Only one emerges victorious. The finest warriors from across 17 star systems have trained their entire lives for this opportunity. Right, but I'm maintenance, Jake said, gesturing at his uniform. I think you want the guys upstairs, the ones with muscles and opinions about protein powder. Your name was submitted by your supervisor. Jake made a mental note to replace all of Gary's coffee with decaf. And I can't just, not go? Refusal would bring dishonor to your entire species. My entire species? Jake considered this. Yeah, they'll get over it. We're pretty resilient that way. Quilnix's antennae twitched in what might have been rage or possibly a mild stroke. The shuttle departs in 20 minutes. Bring whatever equipment you deem necessary for survival. 20 minutes later, Jake showed up at the launch bay with a backpack containing 3 granola bars, a half-eaten bag of beef jerky, a water bottle, his multi-tool, and a jacket, because his mom always told him to bring a jacket. The other contestants looked like they'd ransacked a military, surplus store, and then hit the gym for 6 months straight. There was a Kralix war champion whose arm spikes had arm spikes, a Veltorian stealth hunter with 6 eyes and a personality that screamed, I eat fear for breakfast. Some kind of rock creature that Jake was pretty sure was technically a boulder with opinions. They all stared at Jake. Jake waved. This is the human? The Kralix growled, his translator struggling with what sounded like profound disgust. Humans are classified as a Class 7 survival species, Quilnix said, reading from his datapad with the enthusiasm of someone describing mold. They possess adequate pattern recognition and rudimentary tool use. I can hear you, Jake said cheerfully. You are meant to, Quilnix replied. Now, the rules. You will be dropped into separate zones of Verdaxis 9 at dawn. The planet hosts over 400 documented species capable of killing you in under 30 seconds. The terrain includes acidic swamps, carnivorous plant life, and weather patterns best described as personally vindictive. Reach the extraction point before sunset, or do not. Medical teams are standing by, though statistics suggest they will not be necessary. He paused. Because you will be dead. Dark, Jake said. I like the honesty, though. The Veltorian made a sound like knives being sharpened. The human jokes. He will not be joking when the Thornbacks find him. Are those, bad? Jake asked. Every single contestant turned to look at him. Even the boulder seemed judgmental. The Thornback Vipers, Quilnix said slowly, are responsible for more contestant deaths than all other fauna combined. Their venom causes simultaneous hemorrhaging, paralysis, and what witnesses describe as unspeakable agony. They are territorial, aggressive, and hunt in pairs. 3 contestants were eliminated last year simply from the psychological trauma of seeing one. Jake nodded thoughtfully. But how big are they? Roughly 2 meters. Oh, so not. That big. Quilnix made a note on his datapad. Jake was pretty sure it said something like, increase humans' life insurance policy, or possibly, why do I work here? Any other questions? Quilnix asked. Jake raised his hand. Is there going to be lunch? Or should I have brought more snacks? The shuttle ride was quiet except for the sound of alien warriors mentally preparing for battle, and Jake humming what sounded like a commercial jingle. When they hit atmosphere, Quilnix appeared on the view screen one last time. May the spirits of your ancestors guide you to an honorable survival, he intoned. Thanks, man, Jake said. You have a good one, too. The drop pods launched at dawn, and Jake Morrison descended toward the most dangerous jungle in the known galaxy with the same energy most people bring to a casual hike. This was going to be fine. Probably. Jake's pod hit the ground with all the grace of a drunk penguin, bounced twice, and deposited him face first into something that smelled like a gym bag had died and been left in the sun. He stood up, brushed off purple moss that immediately tried to dissolve his sleeve, and looked around. Huh, he said to nobody. Pretty. And it was pretty. In a, this will absolutely kill you sort of way. Massive trees stretched toward a sky that was more teal than blue, their trunks covered in bioluminescent fungi that pulsed like a nightclub for bugs. Vines hung everywhere, some of them definitely moving on their own. The air was thick and humid, filled with sounds that ranged from ominous chirping to, "Is something screaming in the distance?" Jake checked his compass, realized it was spinning wildly because alien planet, and shrugged. "Well, extraction point is probably that way," he said, pointing at random. He started walking. Within 30 seconds, he nearly stepped on something that looked like a landmine with teeth. It hissed at him. Jake apologized and walked around it. A minute later, a vine with what appeared to be digestive enzymes dripping from its leaves swung at his head. He ducked to tie his shoe at that exact moment. The vine hit a tree instead and immediately began dissolving bark. "Whoa, acid plants," Jake observed. "That's metal." Somewhere in orbit, Administrator Quilnix watched his monitor with mounting horror. The other contestants had immediately deployed advanced survival protocols. The Krolix war champion had established a defensive perimeter. The Veltorian had activated camouflage plating. The boulder was doing boulder things, presumably. The human was poking a glowing mushroom to see if it would bounce. "Should we?" one of the medical team asked nervously. "Perhaps warn him about the razorwing nesting grounds he is approaching?" "He signed the waiver," Quilnix said, though his antennae drooped. Jake wandered into what was indeed a razorwing nesting ground, identified by the bones scattered everywhere and the large winged creatures that looked like someone had given a pterodactyl anger management issues and a taste for murder. One of them swooped down, screeching. Jake looked up. "Oh, birds. Do you guys have birds here? Wait, are you a bird?" The razorwing, confused by prey that was neither running nor appearing concerned, pulled up short. It circled once, made a confused squawk, and returned to its nest. This had never happened before. The razorwing would need therapy later. "Are those eggs?" Jake squinted up at the nests. "Man, those are huge. You could make like one omelet that feeds everybody." He continued walking, now humming again. An hour in, Jake discovered water by the highly technical method of not watching where he was going and falling directly into a stream. He surfaced, sputtering, then tasted it experimentally. "Oh, that's actually pretty good," he said, refilling his water bottle. "Not too minerally." The stream was supposed to contain dissolved minerals toxic to most carbon-based life forms. Humans, as it turned out, had kidneys that looked at toxins as more of a suggestion than a rule. Quilnix was stress-molting. Little pieces of his exoskeleton were flaking off onto his console. "Sir," the medical officer said, "the human is now eating local vegetation." "What? Which vegetation?" "We are not entirely sure. He found some kind of root, wiped it on his pants, and just started eating it." On the monitor, Jake chewed thoughtfully. "Tastes like a potato had a baby with a turnip. Not bad." He wrapped several more in his jacket and kept walking. The plant in question was called a thornroot, and while not poisonous, it was generally considered inedible due to its extremely bitter taste and tough, fibrous texture. Jake's review would be, "Pretty okay, actually. Could use salt." By late morning, Jake had accidentally navigated around 2 ambush predators, walked directly through a patch of paralytic spores that apparently did not work on humans with seasonal allergies, and discovered that the angry buzzing sound following him was actually a screecher beetle trying to intimidate him. "Dude, you have got to relax," Jake told the beetle, which was roughly the size of a football and covered in spikes. "You are way too stressed. Is it work?" "It's usually work." The beetle, having no frame of reference for this response, continued following him at a distance, unsure what else to do. 3 contestants had already triggered their emergency beacons. 1 had been stung by something. 2 had simply decided that no amount of honor was worth this. The Krolix was making excellent time, moving through the jungle like the apex predator he was. And then there was Jake, who had paused to examine a flower because it looked cool, accidentally discovered it was edible, and eaten 6 of them. "You know what?" he said to the screecher beetle, who was still following him. "This is actually kind of a nice walk. Little muggy, but you get used to it." The beetle made a confused chirping noise. "Yeah, exactly, Jake. Agreed." Quilnix put his head in his hands, which was complicated because he had mandibles instead of hands, but he made it work. "How long until he reaches the danger zones?" he asked weakly. The tactical officer checked the map. "Sir, he is in a danger zone. He has been in multiple danger zones." He just walked through the Crimson Thicket, which is classified as an automatic kill zone. And he complimented the scenery. Quilnix looked at the monitor, where Jake Morrison was now sharing his beef jerky with an insect while humming a tune that sounded suspiciously upbeat. "I need a drink," Quilnix said. "Sir, you do not have a mouth. Then I need whatever my species does instead of drinking." On Verdaxis 9, Jake Morrison continued his pleasant nature walk through hell, completely unaware that he was breaking every rule of survival, xenobiology, and common sense. It was about to get so much worse. Jake had been walking for about 3 hours when he heard it, a low, rattling hiss that sounded like a garbage disposal trying to communicate threats. He pushed through a curtain of vines and stopped. "Oh," he said. "Oh wow, look at you." Coiled on a rock in a small clearing was approximately 2 meters of, nope, the thornback viper had scales that shimmered between deep purple and black, with ridges along its spine that looked like they'd been designed by someone who really understood the concept of intimidating. Its head was triangular, its eyes were the color of molten copper, and its mouth was slightly open, revealing fangs that could pass for curved daggers. It was, objectively, the most dangerous creature on Verdaxis 9. Jake thought it looked like a grumpy sock. "Hey, buddy," he said, taking a step closer. The viper's rattle intensified. Its head tracked Jake's movement with predatory focus. Every instinct in its body said this was prey. Easy prey. Soft, slow, stupid prey. "You are just having a bad day, aren't you?" Jake continued, crouching down about 3 meters away. "I get it. Mondays, am I right? Wait, do you guys have Mondays here? Probably not." In orbit, alarms were going off. Multiple alarms. Alarms that had alarms. "Thornback contact," someone shouted. "Human contestant has made visual contact with a thornback viper. Initiating emergency extraction protocol." "Wait," Quilnix said, watching the monitor. "What is he doing?" "Sir, it appears he is. Talking to it? Extract him. Extract him right now." "Sir, extraction requires 30 seconds to lock on coordinates." And he is reaching into his bag. Why is he reaching into his bag? Jake pulled out his beef jerky. The bag crinkled loudly in the humid jungle air. The thornback's rattle stuttered, confused. Nothing in its evolutionary history had prepared it for this. "You look hungry," Jake said. "Are you hungry? I bet you're hungry. Here, try this. It's teriyaki flavored. Well, teriyaki style. I'm not sure it's actual teriyaki because the ingredients label was mostly words I couldn't pronounce, but it's pretty good." He tore off a piece of jerky and tossed it gently toward the viper. The jerky landed about a meter from the snake's head. The viper stared at it, then at Jake, then at the jerky again. In its small reptilian brain, something unprecedented was happening. This was not prey behavior. This was not predator behavior. This was something else entirely, and it was deeply confusing. "Go ahead," Jake encouraged. "It's good. I mean, it's mostly salt and preservatives, but that's what makes it good." The thornback, moving with extreme caution, uncoiled slightly and sniffed the jerky. Then, in a moment that would be studied by xenobiologists for decades, it ate the jerky. "There you go, see? Not so bad, right?" Quilnix was no longer stress-molting. He had progressed to full existential crisis. "This is not possible. This does not happen. Thornbacks do not accept food. They are ambush predators with a kill success rate of 97%. The human has offered it teriyaki beef jerky, sir. I do not care if he offered it the secrets of the universe. That snake should be biting him." But the snake was not biting him. The snake was considering the strange, hairless creature that had just provided food. The snake's brain, such as it was running calculations. Food came from this creature. Biting food source seemed counterproductive. This was a revolution in thornback viper thinking. Jake tossed another piece of jerky, this one landing closer. The viper slithered forward and ate it. Its rattle had stopped entirely. "Yeah, you're just a big noodle, aren't you?" Jake said. "A big, scary noodle with an attitude problem. I had a roommate like you once. His name was Derek. Derek was the worst, but you seem cool." He tossed another piece. The viper caught it mid-air, with reflexes that could have disemboweled Jake 3 times over, but were currently being used for snack acquisition. "Okay, I'm gonna call you Stabby," Jake decided. "Because of the whole stabbing thing you could do with those teeth. But you're not gonna, right? We're friends now." The medical team had given up on extraction. You could not extract someone who was actively hand-feeding death incarnate. How many pieces of jerky does he have? Quilnix asked weakly. The bag appears to be half full, sir. So we are just going to watch this until either he runs out of jerky or common sense? Sir, with respect, the common sense appears to already be gone. Jake had progressed to holding the jerky out in his hand. Come on, Stabby, come get it. I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm like the least threatening thing in this jungle. Yesterday, I apologized to a door I walked into. The thornback viper, now officially named Stabby whether it liked it or not, slithered closer. Its tongue flicked out, tasting the air. Chemical signals said, no threat, no aggression, possible idiot. It took the jerky directly from Jake's hand with surprising gentleness. Good boy, or girl. I don't know how to tell, and it feels rude to check. For the next 20 minutes, Jake Morrison sat in a clearing on the deadliest planet in the galaxy, feeding beef jerky to a creature that had a standing bounty on its venom sacs, and chatting about whatever came to mind. He talked about his job, his terrible supervisor, Gary, his theory that the station's coffee machine was sentient and malicious, and his thoughts on whether the universe was infinite or just really big. Stabby, full of teriyaki beef jerky and experiencing something that might have been contentment, coiled up next to Jake's leg. Okay, I gotta keep moving, Jake said, standing up. Gotta reach that extraction point. Nice meeting you, though. He started walking. Behind him, there was a rustling sound. Jake turned around to find Stabby following him, tongue flicking curiously. Oh no, you gotta stay here, buddy. This is your home. Stabby continued following. Dude, seriously, I can't take you with me. I don't even know what you eat. Besides beef jerky, I mean. Stabby slithered closer, and, in a move that made 3 xenobiologists faint, draped himself across Jake's shoulders like the world's most dangerous scarf. Well, Jake said. Okay then. But you're gonna have to be cool. No biting people. That's the main rule. In orbit, Quilnix stared at the monitor. His antennae had gone completely limp. Somewhere behind him, someone was crying. Sir, the tactical officer said quietly. What do we do? I have no idea, Quilnix admitted. I genuinely, truly have no idea. Jake Morrison, maintenance technician and accidental snake charmer, continued into the jungle with 2 meters of apex predator wrapped around his neck like a deadly, scaly friendship bracelet. The screecher beetle, still following at a distance, made a sound that could only be interpreted as profound confusion. Yeah, Jake told it. I'm surprised too, honestly. By mid-morning, Jake had made what he considered excellent progress. He'd found a trail that probably led somewhere, identified 3 more edible plants through the scientific method of, why not? And Stabby had proven to be surprisingly good company. The snake would occasionally hiss at things Jake couldn't see, which Jake interpreted as helpful warnings rather than territorial murder instincts. You're like a danger noodle security system, Jake told him, scratching under what he assumed was Stabby's chin. The viper made a sound like a rattlesnake purring, which should not have been possible, but apparently was. The screecher beetle was still following them, now joined by 2 more of its kind. They flanked Jake like the world's worst honor guard, buzzing occasionally. Are you guys just bored? Jake asked them. Is that what this is? One of them landed on his backpack. Jake shrugged and kept walking. In orbit, the monitoring station had gone from panic to morbid fascination. A crowd had gathered around Quilnix's console. Word had spread. People from other departments were showing up with snacks. He's still alive, someone whispered. Not just alive, the medical officer said, sounding like he'd witnessed a religious event. His heart rate is steady. His stress hormones are normal. He's more relaxed than I am, and I'm in a climate-controlled space station. The thornback is still on his shoulders, another observer added. Unnecessarily. Everyone could see the thornback was still on his shoulders. It had been on his shoulders for over an hour. How much jerky did he have? Someone asked. He's out, Quilnix said quietly. He ran out 20 minutes ago. The crowd went silent. So why is the snake still? We don't know. Down on Verdaxis 9, Jake was humming again, now working through what sounded like a collection of elevator music's greatest hits. He pushed through a particularly dense section of undergrowth and emerged into another clearing, where he came face to face with a Veltorian stealth hunter. The alien went rigid, his 6 eyes widening in perfect synchronization. His camouflage plating flickered and died. His weapon, some kind of plasma rifle, dropped slightly. Oh hey, Jake said. You're one of the other contestants, right? How's it going? The Veltorian made a sound like a tea kettle having a nervous breakdown. His eyes were locked on Stabby, who had raised his head and was doing that thing snakes do where they taste the air with their tongue. The sound of Stabby's rattle started up, low and menacing. Yeah, this is Stabby, Jake said proudly. I found him a couple hours ago. Well, he found me. Technically, he's found us, I guess. Anyway, he's cool. You're cool, right, Stabby? Stabby's rattle intensified. Okay, maybe don't make any sudden movements, Jake suggested. He's a little protective. Are you trying to get to the extraction point too? We could, walk together if you want. The Veltorian activated his emergency beacon with a trembling claw, turned around, and ran directly into a tree. He corrected course and kept running, his translator screaming something that was probably profanity in 6 languages. That was weird, Jake said. He seemed stressed. One of the screecher beetles chirped in what might have been agreement. You know what? It's probably the competition getting to him. People get weird when there's pressure. Jake continued walking. Behind him, in the underbrush, something large had been stalking him for the last 15 minutes. A Raxor stalker, built like a panther designed by a committee of nightmares, with retractable claws that could punch through starship hulls and a jaw that unhinged like a snake's. It had been waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. It chose now. The Raxor stalker launched itself from the undergrowth with a roar that made the trees shake. It sailed through the air, claws extended, mouth open, ready to end Jake Morrison's improbable survival run. Stabby moved faster than thought. The thornback viper uncoiled from Jake's shoulders and struck mid-air, fangs sinking deep into the Raxor stalker's throat. The big cat hit the ground in a tumble, thrashing. Stabby held on, pumping venom with the efficiency of a creature that had millions of years of evolution backing up his life choices. The Raxor stalker went still in under 5 seconds. Jake had stumbled forward, turned around, and was now processing what just happened. Stabby! Holy shit, dude. Are you okay? The viper released his grip, slithered back, and returned to his position on Jake's shoulders, looking extraordinarily pleased with himself in the way that reptiles somehow can. You just saved my life, Jake said, his voice cracking slightly. You absolute legend. I'm getting you so much beef jerky when we get back. All the beef jerky. Every flavor they make. He reached up and very gently patted Stabby's head. The viper leaned into the touch. In orbit, the crowd around the monitor erupted in cheers. Quilnix just sat there, his antennae hanging limp, wondering if this was what madness felt like. Sir, the tactical officer said, the human has now effectively weaponized friendship. I hate this, Quilnix said. I hate all of this. Jake, meanwhile, had noticed something else approaching. The murder hornet-looking thing he'd seen earlier, officially called a Voltus drone, was hovering nearby. It was the size of a football, covered in black and yellow stripes, with a stinger that delivered enough paralytic toxin to drop a Kralix in full battle armor. Hey there, Jake said, still riding the adrenaline high from almost dying. You want some granola bar? I got 3 left. He pulled out a granola bar, unwrapped it, and broke off a piece. The Voltus drone landed on a nearby branch, its compound eyes fixed on the food. Voltus drones were opportunistic scavengers when they weren't being murder machines. The granola bar smelled sweet. Sweet was good. Jake tossed the piece. The Voltus drone caught it with its front legs and began eating, making a sound like a tiny chainsaw. There you go. Yeah, those have chocolate chips. Well, chocolate-adjacent chips. Probably not real chocolate. By the time Jake started walking again, the Voltus drone was following him too, buzzing contentedly. The 3 screecher beetles had formed a perimeter. Stabby was back to his scarf position. Jake Morrison now had an entourage. The Kralix war champion, who had been making excellent time and was currently in 2nd place overall, crested a ridge and saw something moving through the jungle below. He activated his long-range scanner and froze. The human, the soft, weak human from the shuttle, walking through the crimson thicket like he was on a casual stroll, with a thornback viper on his shoulders, and what appeared to be a small army of hostile fauna escorting him. The Kralix checked his scanner again, certain it was malfunctioning. It was not malfunctioning. No, the Kralix said to himself. No, this is wrong. This is against nature. He watched Jake stop to examine another plant, eat part of it, nod appreciatively, and continue walking. The creatures followed him like he was some kind of Disney princess, except the princess was a maintenance technician, and the cute animals could kill you 30 different ways. The Kralix war champion who had never retreated from anything in his entire life, made a tactical decision that was definitely not retreating, actually, but was really more of a strategic repositioning to a location that was very far away from whatever the hell that was. Jake, oblivious to all of this, checked the position of the sun and adjusted his course. "I think we're making pretty good time," he told his collection of deadly friends. "Should get there way before sunset. This is honestly going better than most of my Tuesdays." Stabby hissed softly in what Jake chose to interpret as encouragement. Quilnix watched the monitor and did something he had never done in 40 years of service. He laughed. It started as a quiet clicking sound, then grew into full mandible-rattling laughter that bordered on hysteria. "Sir?" someone asked, concerned. "He's going to win," Quilnix said, still laughing. "The human with the snacks and the death wish is going to win the Galactic Survival Challenge. With a thornback viper. And insects. Should we do something?" "Like what?" Quilnix asked, wiping at his eyes with his forearms. "What could we possibly do? He has befriended the jungle. The jungle likes him now." On Verdaxis 9, Jake Morrison continued his entirely accidental victory march, surrounded by creatures that should have killed him, protected by a snake that should have eaten him, and completely unaware that he was breaking every rule of xenobiology ever written. "You know what?" he said to Stabby. "I might actually tell Gary this was fun, just to see his face." Jake reached the extraction point at approximately 2 in the afternoon, which he knew, because his watch still worked, and also because the sun was doing that thing where it makes you squint a lot. The extraction point was a large clearing with a landing pad that looked like someone had optimized it for dramatic arrivals, which made sense given this whole thing was apparently televised across 17 star systems. There was a large obelisk in the center with a button on it. The button glowed green and had instructions in what Jake counted as maybe 40 different languages. He was pretty sure one of them was English. "Press for extraction," he read aloud. "Okay, seems straightforward." He pressed the button. A hologram flickered to life above the obelisk, showing Administrator Quilnix's face. The administrator looked like he had aged several decades since this morning. "Congratulations," Quilnix said, his voice flat with exhaustion. "You have successfully reached the extraction point. Please remain in the designated area. Retrieval will commence in 15 minutes. Do not leave the clearing. Do not engage with any remaining fauna. Do not." He paused, looking at something off-screen. "Why is there a thornback viper on your shoulders?" "Oh, this is Stabby," Jake said, pointing up at the snake. "He's coming with me, right? Like that's allowed?" "That is absolutely not allowed. That is the opposite of allowed. That is a lethal predator native to a restricted planet." "Yeah, but he's cool now. We're friends. He saved my life and everything." Quilnix made a sound like a computer trying to process a paradox. "You have 15 minutes. We will discuss this later. If there is a later, which there might not be because you have a thornback viper." The hologram cut off. "He seems stressed," Jake observed. He sat down on the edge of the landing pad, his legs dangling. Stabby uncoiled and slithered down to coil in his lap. The 3 screecher beetles landed nearby, still buzzing. The Voltus drone perched on Jake's shoulder, grooming its antennae. "This is actually kind of nice," Jake said to his assembled friends. "Quiet, good weather. Nobody's trying to kill me. Well, except you guys could, but you're not, so that's cool." He pulled out his last granola bar, split it between the beetles and the drone, and sat back to enjoy the sun. Stabby's scales were warm against his legs. The jungle hummed with life around them, but nothing approached. Word had apparently spread that this particular patch of clearing was under new management. 7 minutes later, the Veltorian stealth hunter emerged from the jungle on the far side of the clearing, looking like he'd fought his way through several layers of hell. His camouflage plating was cracked, his rifle was gone, and one of his 6 eyes was swollen shut. He saw Jake and froze. Jake waved. "Hey, you made it!" "That's awesome, man." The Veltorian saw Stabby. Then he saw the insects. Then he made a decision that all of his stealth training had prepared him for. He slowly, carefully, walked in a Billidan's wide arc around Jake, pressed the button on the obelisk, and sat down as far away as physically possible while still remaining in the clearing. "You good?" Jake called over. The Veltorian made a hand gesture that was probably rude in his culture but might also have been a prayer. 3 minutes after that, 2 more contestants arrived nearly simultaneously, a Querix runner who looked like a bipedal lizard, and something that Jake was pretty sure was made entirely of angry gas. They both spotted Jake, stopped, conferred with each other in frantic gestures, pressed the button together, and took up positions on the opposite side of the landing pad. "There's plenty of room over here," Jake offered. They declined with vigorous head shaking. The next arrival was the boulder creature, which Jake learned was called a gravok. It rolled into the clearing, pressed the button with what might have been a pseudopod, and settled into place. It seemed unbothered by Jake's entourage, possibly because it was a sentient rock and had different priorities. Then came a Threxian scout, a Mulvac warrior, and finally, looking absolutely furious, the Kralix war champion. The Kralix stomped into the clearing, his arm spikes fully extended, his honor clearly bruised. He glared at Jake with the intensity of someone whose entire worldview had been challenged by a maintenance technician with snacks. "You," the Kralix growled. "Me," Jake agreed cheerfully. "This is impossible. You should be dead. You should be extremely dead." "Yeah, I've been getting that a lot today. But here we are. You have made a mockery of this challenge. You have violated the spirit of the trial." Jake considered this. "I mean, the rules just said, reach the extraction point before sunset. Nobody said I couldn't make friends along the way." Stabby raised his head and rattled warningly at the Kralix. The 3 screecher beetles' buzzing increased in pitch. The Voltus drone's stinger extended slightly. The Kralix, who had fought in 3 wars and won medals for valor, took a step back. "This is unnatural," he said, but with less conviction. "Look, dude, I just gave them snacks and was nice to them. You ever try being nice to things? Works surprisingly well. I am a warrior of the Kralix Dominion. We do not make friends with prey animals." "Stabby's not really a prey animal," Jake pointed out. "He's more of an apex predator." "You know what, Stabby? Say hi to what's your name, by the way." "Croth," the Kralix said automatically. "Stabby, say hi to Croth." Stabby's tongue flicked out. Croth flinched. "See? He says hi. He's friendly. Well, friendly to me. And now you, I guess." Croth pressed the extraction button with more force than strictly necessary and sat down heavily. "My ancestors are watching this," he muttered. "They are watching and judging." "Tell them I said what's up," Jake offered. The extraction shuttle arrived exactly on time, descending through the atmosphere with military precision. The boarding ramp extended. Administrator Quilnix appeared at the top, flanked by what appeared to be a full medical team and possibly some kind of security detail. "All contestants will board immediately," Quilnix announced. "The human will board last." "Why do I go last?" Jake asked. "Because I need to figure out what to do about your menagerie before we put you on a shuttle with everyone else." The other contestants practically sprinted up the ramp. Jake stood up, Stabby returning to his shoulder position. The beetles and the drone hovered nearby. "Okay, so, funny thing," Jake started. "No," Quilnix said. "You didn't let me finish. No. The answer is no. You cannot bring them with you. They are native fauna. They are dangerous. They are—" Stabby hissed. Quilnix stopped talking. "He really doesn't like it when people interrupt," Jake said. "Also, I feel like we should acknowledge that Stabby saved my life. There was this whole thing with a Raxor stalker. It was intense. So, like, I owe him. You understand owing people? Well, owing snakes. Same concept. This is a bureaucratic nightmare," Quilnix said quietly. "This is going to require 17 forms and possibly a legal precedent. Is that a yes?" Quilnix looked at Jake, then at Stabby, then at the beetles and the drone, then at the camera crew that was recording everything, then at the thousands of people watching across the galaxy who were probably very invested in what happened to the human and his death noodle friend. "We will discuss this in orbit," Quilnix said finally. "Board the shuttle. Keep that thing contained. His name is Stabby. I do not care if his name is Lord Chancellor of the Serpent Realm. Board the shuttle." Jake walked up the ramp, his collection of lethal friends following. The other contestants pressed themselves against the walls. Someone whimpered. "Whimpered? Don't worry," Jake told them. "They're cool as long as nobody makes any sudden movements or acts threatening. So, just, be cool." The shuttle ride back to orbit was the quietest journey anyone had ever experienced. The only sound was the hum of the engines and occasionally Stabby's rattle when someone breathed too loudly. When they docked with the station, there was a crowd waiting. Word had spread. The human who befriended a thornback viper and won the Galactic Survival Challenge with the power of snacks and inexplicable charisma was news. Big news. Quilnick stood in front of the assembled crowd with a large, ornate thing that probably weighed 3 pounds and looked expensive. He stared at it, then at Jake, then at the medal again. "Jake Morrison," he said, sounding defeated by the universe itself. "You have completed the Galactic Survival Challenge. You are the victor." The crowd erupted in cheers. Well, some of them cheered. Some of them were still processing. The Kralix war champion looked like he was having a spiritual crisis. "Cool," Jake said. "Can I get the medal? Or, do you need to come over here? Because Stabby's been hissing every time someone gets close, and I don't want to stress him out." Quilnix walked over, moving like a man approaching a bomb, and placed the medal around Jake's neck. "Congratulations," he said through what sounded like gritted mandibles. "Thanks, man. This was actually pretty fun. Is there going to be a next year? Because I feel like I've got the hang of it now." "We will discuss that later," Quilnix said. "Much later. After therapy." 3 weeks later, Jake Morrison was back in the maintenance bay, elbow deep in another air filtration unit, when Gary walked by. "How was your time off?" Gary asked, clearly having no idea what he'd subjected Jake to. "Pretty good," Jake said. "Met some new friends. Got a medal. The usual." Gary nodded and kept walking. Across the station, Jake's apartment now housed one Thornback Viper, legally registered as an emotional support animal after 17 forms, 6 committee reviews, and one very stressed Quilnick signing off on paperwork that made his antennae hurt. Stabby had his own heated rock and a subscription service that delivered teriyaki beef jerky twice a week. He seemed happy. As happy as a deadly predator could be while watching reality television on Jake's couch. The Screecher Beetles had been returned to Verdaxis 9 with ceremonial honors. The Voltus drone went to a xenobiology research station, where it was reportedly thriving and had learned to paint. Administrator Quilnix was in therapy, as promised. His therapist had needed to consult 3 textbooks and a specialist before figuring out how to address witnessed human violate fundamental laws of nature through friendship. The Galactic Survival Challenge announced new rules for the following year. Rule 47, subsection C, now read, "No humans." When pressed for details, Quilnix had simply said, "We know what we did," and refused to elaborate. Croth, the Kralix war champion, had written a memoir titled, "Defeat with Honor, When the Prey Becomes the Victor." It was selling surprisingly well. The chapter about Stabby had required a content warning, and Jake Morrison, maintenance technician, occasionally looked at the medal sitting on his shelf next to a photo of him and Stabby, and smiled. His communicator buzzed. A message from Quilnix. "We have received multiple requests for your participation in other survival challenges across the galaxy. I have declined all of them. Please, never do anything like this again." Jake typed back. "No promises. Stabby and I were thinking about checking out that jungle planet in Sector 7. I heard they have really cool frogs." There was a long pause. Then, "I am forwarding your contact information to every therapist in the quadrant. Thanks. Hey, one more thing. I saw something on Verdaxis 9 that looked like a space dog. Like 6 legs, but definitely dog energy. You guys have those here? Because if you do, I feel like Stabby would love a brother." Quilnix's response was just a string of characters that Jake's translator couldn't process, but he was pretty sure translated to screaming. Jake chuckled, put down his communicator, and returned to fixing the air filter. Behind him, through the window of his apartment visible from the bay, Stabby was coiled on the couch watching a cooking show, his rattle occasionally tapping along to the theme music. "Best Tuesday ever," Jake said to himself. And somewhere in the galaxy, 17 civilizations collectively updated their definition of apex predator to include humans with snacks and poor self-preservation instincts. The universe would never be quite the same.